organization with a history. You can go to the Mets, but if you go to the Mets, you're playing for the Mets. If you go to the Yankees, you're number 2, you're number 3. If you go to the Boston Red Sox, Fred Lynn will tell you that can make a difference between being a great player and remembered as a legend. Fred Lynn always said if he stayed with the Red Sox, he'd be in the Hall of Fame. He left. He went to Anaheim. He didn't get there. You don't want to play for a backwater team like the New York Yankees. You want to play at Fenway.
The Larry Ellison of Fenway Park is pronouncing his recruiting pitch clearly.
No, but seriously, when you play at Fenway, you're part of something bigger, and you're the biggest part of that. And Juan Soto would be that man with the best form. No, wrong. Take them down. Take those pictures down.
Look at that breaking news, everybody. Breaking news. That photo might be reality past his prologue, I've been told.
This is the Red Sox have the best farm system. They've got the best young players coming up. They've told him they're going to buy 2 or 3 good players to go along with him. Come on. This seems simple, Mika, doesn't it?
Yeah. This whole segment has completed me. It's been magical and romantic.
Thank you.
The latest episode.
That was the Vandy. That was the Vandy.
I got it. Pablo Torre finds out. Podcast is available now. Pablo Torre, thank you. I think this was too long.
The best play discipline of our time.
All right, let's get to the news. Way past the top of the hour, our top story this morning, Pete Hegseth's nomination as Defense Secretary appears to be in jeopardy this morning. This comes amid new reporting involving allegations of his drinking from former colleagues at Fox News. NBC News senior Capitol Hill correspondent Garrett Haake has the latest.
President-elect Trump's pick for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth facing growing skepticism of his chances for confirmation amid damaging news reports.
Do you need to address the questions about your character that have been raised in some of these reports?
And now, 10 current and former Fox News employees who worked with Hegseth, who hosted one of the network's morning shows, telling NBC News that he drank in ways that concern them. 2 saying that on more than a dozen occasions they smelled alcohol on him before he went on air. Quote, everyone would be talking about it behind the scenes, one of the former Fox News employees said. He should not be Secretary of Defense, another former Fox News employee said. His drinking should be disqualifying. A Trump transition spokesperson calling the allegations disgusting, completely unfounded, and false. An attorney for Hegseth referring us to the transition statement. Fox News did not respond.
Mr. Hegseth, so many of these stories about you have involved alcohol. Do you have a drinking problem, sir?
Now NBC News has learned as many as 6 GOP senators are not comfortable supporting Hegseth's nomination, according to multiple Republicans with direct knowledge of the nomination process. Hegseth can only afford to lose the support of 3 Republicans if all Democrats vote no.
The articles I've read, some of them are concerning. I don't know if it's true or not, but he'll go through the process. He'll be asked about it. We'll see what happens.
There are questions that some members have, and we're going to be working for an answer.
Are you among the members who have questions?
Well, I'm looking to be supportive.
But no Republican senator has publicly said they will oppose Hegseth, who's also a decorated combat veteran.
I think they've got a really good shot of getting them all through.
Meanwhile, another Trump pick abruptly pulled his name from consideration. Chad Chronister, the sheriff in Hillsborough County, Florida, withdrawing his selection for administrator of the Drug Enforcement Administration, posting, quote, over the past several days, as the gravity of this very important responsibility set in, I've concluded that I must respectfully withdraw from consideration.
NBC's Garrett Haake reporting there. One more bit of news concerning Pete Hegseth. The Wall Street Journal and The Bulwark are reporting this morning President-elect Trump is weighing whether to replace Hegseth with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Both outlets out. People are familiar with the discussions. NBC News has not independently confirmed that reporting. People close to the president-elect's team tell the Journal Trump allies believe Hegseth's nomination may not survive further scrutiny that really has escalated in the last 24 hours. Joining the conversation, staff writer for The Atlantic, David Frum, and U.S. national editor of the Financial Times, Ed Luce. Jonathan Lemire, Caddy K, Mike Barnicle are still with us. David, I'll start with you on this. What's your sense of where the Hegseth pick is headed here?
Well, just given what one sees on camera, if you're too drunk for Fox News, you're very, very drunk indeed. So that's alarming. In 1989, President George H.W. Bush nominated John Tower, senator from Texas, for Secretary of Defense. Now, Tower was a very considerable person, a real defense intellectual, someone who deeply understood defense, unlike the current nominee. And it emerged that Tower had a drinking problem. And when he was drinking too much, he would make himself a nuisance or worse to the women around him. And for that reason, his nomination collapsed in 1989. You don't want to think that our moral standards have declined so much that you could say, let's take all the drinking, all the sex pesting, subtract any knowledge of defense, subtract any leadership, and there's your next Secretary of Defense for the 21st century.
You know, Ed Luce, the colleagues, his colleagues at Fox News have been concerned for some time, and even before we got this NBC story.
And just clearly, word is he's very popular there.
Yeah, I was going to say again, two things to be true at once. These are not people that are like wishing to do him harm at Fox News. He apparently is very popular at Fox News. And that said, at the same time, they're very concerned about the fact that he would always come to work smelling of alcohol, or that he would come to work smelling of alcohol a good bit. And this had been a growing concern. So when we saw Courtney Kubi's reporting and reporting by other NBC journalists, we were surprised. You know, it's kind of like his mom writing a letter saying that she loved him, but she was deeply concerned with him. These are not people, these are not left-wingers trying to destroy a Trump nominee. These are actually people that like him or love him, who have said that he has a problem, and it lines up. The alcoholism, the mother talking about the abuse of women, lines up with some of the charges against him that we've also heard in the press. So I think the question is, how do Republicans get past that? And I don't think they're going to, but how do they get past that for a guy who, even when you take all of that away, is not qualified to be Secretary of Defense by any standard?
Now, this has a Matt Gaetz sort of feeling to it already, and I wouldn't be surprised if he pulls out in the next couple of days. There are enough Republican senators, way more than 3, who are expressing doubts about his managerial competence. You know, he ran a couple of veterans organizations and just had to abandon it because he was so indisciplined, frequently drunk, you know, partying the whole time. And, you know, this is, I think, a really good example of why you should run background checks before you nominate people. And know Trump famously does beauty contests, 2-minute sort of interviews at Mar-a-Lago. But having a proper background check would have brought all of this out about Hegseth, most of which, I am told, has been a surprise to Donald Trump, including the drinking. And as you know, Trump is a teetotaler. And doesn't really approve of drinking. So I think Hegseth's for the birds, frankly. It's just a question of when he pulls out.
So, Katty Kay, we know that there are moments where Donald Trump really likes to dig in and fight. He doesn't like to apologize, doesn't like to acknowledge that he made a mistake. But to Ed's point, we certainly heard reporting last couple of days. I've talked to folks as well who say that the Trump team really worried about Hegseth's chances to get through the Senate. And it does feel like this may be nearing its end unless he can pull off a miracle of some sort in his Fox News interview later today. But the other thing that Donald Trump likes, though not apologies, is he likes to be praised for his picks. And it does seem like if he goes for DeSantis, which would sort of be this out-of-nowhere thunderbolt that would get a lot of attention and probably acclaim from the right, that might be another motivation to make the swap.
Yeah, I mean, and the same, I guess you could say about Pam Bondi as well. I mean, relative to Matt Gaetz, Pam Bondi is getting a lot of approval up on the Hill as well. You know, when you appoint people because it's a beauty contest or because you want the shock and awe factor or because you want to show that you can flex your power, and then things start to go wrong, it doesn't look great for the administration as it's coming in. I mean, they haven't even got in yet, and they've already had, potentially by the end of this week, 3 of their picks having to step down or pull themselves out of contention. And that gets to a lack of seriousness about the process. That's unusual, right? And we've all covered American transitions. This doesn't happen very often. It'll be forgotten, and if Ron DeSantis gets in and Pam Bondi gets in, then these moments won't be remembered. But it kind of gets to what is Trump trying to do here? Why is he doing this when the Senate doesn't like it? These are not the most qualified people. There are plenty of MAGA people who are qualified. What's he trying to prove by nominating people who are so out of the bounds of the normal types of people that would be nominated?
Ed Luce, your latest piece is Joe Biden's Selfish Pardoning Act. Let me ask you about that. I mean, when the President of the United States initially says, I will not pardon my son, and he says it several times, it was a different atmosphere than occurred within the last 6 or 7 weeks when he decides to pardon himself. Circumstances changed drastically for him, his family, and potentially his son, Hunter. By drastically, I mean mentioning names like, Matt Gaetz and Mr. Patel taking over the FBI, the Justice Department being taken over under the relatively hope of the President of the United States, the incoming President of the United States to exact revenge on his enemies. That changed things enormously. So why was it so selfish of the President to intervene to save his son at that moment?
Well, look, first of all, as a father myself, I fully understand why he did this. And protecting Hunter is an instinct that your offspring is an instinct that's entirely understandable. But it does go against an argument not just that Biden made, but that the Kamala Harris campaign made, that Democrats in Congress were making, which is, here is the difference between us and you, Donald Trump. You don't believe in the rule of law. You believe that you are above the law. We don't. And proof of that is that Hunter Biden, the president's son, is being subjected to the justice system, to the ordinary course of justice. Now, it might be true, and I think it probably is, that Hunter Biden was subjected to far more than the ordinary course of justice. Most, Americans would have been given a rap on the knuckles for lying on their gun registration form. But this pardon goes back 10 years. This pardon goes back to the time when Hunter was trying to monetize his father's name, then Vice President Biden. That was his only selling point to prospective business partners in China, Ukraine, and elsewhere, was his name, access to the name. And so the scope of this pardon and the timing of it, I think it's just another sort of get out of jail free card to Trump. It just gives Trump that, it puts sort of wind in the Trump sails of saying, look, we're all alike, we're all politicians, we're all corrupt. The system, serves us, and we all do the same thing. And that's just not helpful in advance of what undoubtedly will be a mass pardon of the January 6th felons.
So, David Frum, I'd love to hear your take on that. Dems are kind of split on this. Your take on the pardon of Hunter Biden?
I think, as Ed says, it was an understandable mistake, not because it changes anything Trump will do, but because it changes how people can speak about what Trump will do. Trump's greatest asset, as Ed said, is that pervading sense, everybody does it. And it's hard to explain to Americans, especially the Americans who elected Trump, who are the most disengaged from politics, who know the least about the system, this is Trump. Biden did a little bad thing. Trump does a big bad thing. That's a very important difference. That's going to be hard to explain. Look,